evening, everyone, and welcome to our last of our Spring Speaker Series. Just to give you a little hint, we're currently just working on our Fall Speaker Series. We have some really nice things lined up for this fall. I think you'll be real pleased. We are just starting to get them scheduled, so be watching your next newsletter, and we'll have them listed so you can mark your calendars. And tonight we have one of our own. We have Cathy Coulter, who is a board member, an author, and a genealogist. And she's going to talk to us tonight about starting your family tree, researching your family tree. Cathy?
Hi, hello, and thanks for coming tonight. When I started working on my family tree 22 years ago, my first thought was, well, it would be a nice hobby. And it would, it lasted a lot longer than a hobby. And I figured it would help give my children something more about their ancestors other than just a name underneath an old photograph. They'd get to know them. And I first sat with note cards smaller than these, with all the individual family members, one for each card. I had them laid out on my floor in the living room in the form of a family tree. So the children and I could see the connections between the other ancestors and us and how it all laid out. And I made lots of phone calls, talked to a lot of family members, made lots of visits that way, sent lots of letters. I drove to libraries, courthouses, cemeteries, historical societies, and a lot of times it was a long process, and I sometimes didn't get a whole lot of information very quickly. But yet today we have computers and websites and a lot more that we can get the information easier and a whole lot faster. The easiest way to start with your genealogy for your family tree is to start with yourself and your immediate family. Then you work your way back through the generations that way and gather as much information you can as you go back. It sounds simple, and you may ask why when what you want to know is actually 3 generations away from you. And it's all because what you know on yourself and the generations before will help give you the clues and hints you need to find those ancestors. It's very much like a puzzle with the puzzle pieces scattered across the floor. And you pick up one piece, not know exactly where it's going to fit into the puzzle right away. But you do know once that puzzle's in there, it will help you find the next piece of the puzzle. And eventually you'll have a nice picture of your family and how it's all connected. Let's say, for example, you know your grandmother's birth date and where she was born, but you don't know anything about her parents or even their names. Well, what you know about her will help you find them. You go searching the census records, and you search the years that when she was a child and would have been living with her parents. Once you find her parents, their information, and perhaps her siblings as well, which will lead you to the next generation or finding more about them. There are many kinds of family documents that you may have or your family members may have. There are obvious ones. There are the birth records, death records, marriage records, but there's a lot more than that. Someone in your family may have family Bibles, photo albums, scrapbooks, diaries, letters, and things like that could help you. You should be prepared to talk to your family before you actually do so. And what I mean is you need to know what questions you really want to know and have answered. You want to be specific about the people, places, things, and events that you're looking for. For example, instead of asking, what do you know about grandfather, you can say, what kind of job did grandfather have, or how old was grandmother when she got married? Having questions ready and written down will help keep you focused when you're talking to them, and you won't forget anything that's most important to you. Above all, write everything down during your conversation or actually record it. That way you won't miss anything. Also ask them before you leave to get back in touch with you if they happen to think of anything later after you're gone, because they may come up with something that would help you. Documents and records, you can ask them if they have anything they're willing to share. If they do, you can ask them to photocopy them for you. If for some reason they can't, take a photograph of them and write down all the information they have on them the first time. If they're like my family, they are going to have stories to tell you. And my family had a lot to say. And I listened carefully. But I caution that when you're listening to these family stories, not to take all the facts in the story as concrete proof that actually happened. Because it's like with the telephone game, and you're the last person in line in that line, and the stories all come down to you. And as you know with the game, some of the facts can get mixed up and confused, and everybody believes they're correct, and they are for themselves and what they've heard. But for example, I was told this one story on my husband's side of the family. The family came over from Wales. The two youngest boys were twins and born here in America. Our direct ancestor was born in Wales and came over when he was 2 years old. Well, when researching, I had a hard time finding them with those facts, and then I decided maybe something's wrong somewhere. And gave myself a little bit more latitude and room. And I found them on ship's records and even on census records over in Wales. And I found out that the direct descendant they said came over when he was 2, he was 4 years old when he came over. The two boys that were born in America that were supposed to be twins were not twins, and they were born in Wales. They were 1 and 2 years old. And the father did not come over with the family. He'd come over first and then sent for his family later. So, as you can tell, stories do change as generations get told this. So always consider the stories important and check the facts, because you may find some surprises. When you have all the information on yourself and your relatives that you're able to find, it's time to get serious about organizing. And it's most likely one of the most important things you can do before you get started is to set up a system of record keeping. Now, you'll find that, like me, if you don't, you're going to run into some problems because you're going to do research that you've already done, or you're not being able to find certain things that you're wanting. You can use workbooks, 3-ring binders, notebooks, file folders, regular folders. You can have one for each surname, for whatever it is. Make it useful to you and easy to use, and something you can carry with you when you go away to a historical society or somewhere to do research. I do advise, though, if you keep your information on a computer using a computer program or a website, back up all your information onto a CD, flash drive, or print it all out, or a combination of any of them. Just because computers crash, they lose information, and you really don't want to do all that work only to find it's all gone. I've had it happen. It's not fun. Some of these things I'm telling you tonight, I've learned the hard way over the years. Make sure that when you get a chance to see a document or record, get it photocopied, because I guarantee you, you will be going back to look at it again or wanting to show it to somebody. And when you photocopy it off, make sure you write down, especially if it's on from the website, you write down where you found it. On the website, you write down the name of the website, the www. whatever, and the database you found it in, just so that you can go back and look at it or somebody else can. When you're ready to do your research, you need to consider who you want to concentrate on and just what it is you want to look for about that person. Write down your goals and your questions and the types of information you think you want to look for, and plan it out first. It'll go a lot easier. It's always good to have various blank forms, the genealogy blank forms that they have on hand to use for your research. There are 2 very important ones that I think are highly important. One is the ancestor charts, and another is the family group sheet. The ancestor chart, it's basically a path that you can follow your ancestors back through time, which will show you the connections and how they relate to each other as well as to you. You will find yourself referring to that. If you have come up with any questions about, okay, who was so-and-so's sister or brother, that is the easiest way to find out. The other one is the family group sheet, which I think is extremely important when doing your research, because it will organize your information for you that you find and that you have. It will tell you what you have, what you don't have, and specifically what kind of record you need to be looking for. The usual information that can be found on the family group sheet are the name of your ancestor, the dates for their birth, death, marriage, their location for those events, their parents, their marriages, their siblings, their spouse, and information about them. A good family group sheet will include more information than just that. It will give you space to add other kinds of documents and information such as military, service records, residences, wills, immigration, naturalization, or whatever other kind of facts you can find, even census records. When you fill out the family group sheet and you find you're wanting to fill one out for one of your ancestors' wives, when you put her name at the top of the page, you do not put her married name. You'll start and get lost and not be able to find her side of the family. You use her maiden name up there. Her married name will come into play when you fill in her spouse's information. As far as children go, filling out a group sheet for each one of them will usually come into play when you want to either focus directly on them or they get married and start having children of their own. Such as documents for wives and children can be copied off, and like you make 3 copies, one for the father, one for the mother, and one for their own group sheets. Or you can create a document number for that specific family group and add the document number onto each group sheet and where the location where you're going to be keeping that document. And the number you need to also remember to put on the back of the document so you know which document you're referring to. When dealing with multiple marriages in the family group sheet, it's really preferable, in my opinion, to have one group sheet which will list the multiple marriages. Sometimes you can't find a group sheet that will hold enough if they've been married more than twice. Or if you choose you want to have one for each person, each marriage, you can do that. But if you do one for each marriage, make sure you make a notation on the family group sheet which number of marriage it comes into play, whether it's the first, second, or third, so you don't get confused and get the families mixed up. And keep them all together in order. Keep your family group sheet with you when you go to redo your research and fill it in right away as you find information. It'll help keep you organized much better. There are many different kinds of documents, as you probably already know, to create your family tree. One of these documents that you'll be researching and doing a lot is the census records. And there's some important information you need to know about the census records. The census records are very valuable. They can be found and have been created every 10 years from 1790 all the way through up to today. But the only records that you'll be able to view and research are from 1790 to 1940. The 1950 census record will not be out until 2022. I'm quite excited about it coming out in a couple of years. It's because of privacy issues. They I think it's like every 70 years they will release a new, I don't know if it's every 70 years or from the date that it was done, but there's a specific time period that they will say only release them for the public to view because of privacy issues. They don't want to cause any problems for anybody.
Exactly.
So yeah, so it's kind of frustrating for us that want to see the 1950 or 1960. We just have to wait. There's nothing else to do.
We could be dead by then.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But I would rather have it that way and protect my own privacy than to let it all go out there and start and have problems with everybody. So it's just the way it is.
1870.
It goes from 1790 to 1940 that you can look at right now. The first federal census, which was the 1790, was also known as the head of households, which you will see that is referred to that from time to time. This particular census is kind of disappointing for us, unfortunately, because it only covered extremely basic information, and it was only for the head of household. Nobody else was mentioned. Now the 1980 census is something else you need to be aware of. There was a fire in 1921 that destroyed almost all of those records. There is a very tiny few select pieces that are still available for us to look at, but they are extremely hard to find and to get a hold of. And a lot of people that work with genealogy or historical societies may not realize that there are some left. I was quite lucky to be one of the lucky ones to find one for one of our ancestors. And it was only the one ancestor I could find it for. Out in eastern Pennsylvania, a genealogist knew where it existed and was able to copy it off and send it to me. So don't give up hope and looking for those altogether just because they were fired. Go ahead and try and look for them. But if you can't find them, there are other schedules that were taken that year, such as the agricultural schedule and the manufacturing schedule, which may help you. So there is some other information you could turn to. There is one problem with the 1790 to 1940 census records, which makes them difficult to use, but they're not impossible. Unfortunately, these set of census records only give the names of heads of household and the number of people who lived in there according to gender and age, such as how many kids ages 0 to 5 were living in the household at the time. Now, if you know the birth date, approximate birth date of everyone in the household, and about where they lived, you can probably find the census records you need for your family and confirm their residency there. You just have to do some math to try and figure that out a little bit sometimes, but it can be helpful. If you want to make sure, you also want to make sure when you're looking at these records that you have other documents to show that they did live in that particular county and how old they were, so you can confirm that you do have the right family. Starting with the 1850 census records, I'm very happy to announce that they list every person in the household and information about each and every one of them. You need to know, though, that unfortunately the census records can be wrong that you find on them. There's many reasons, such as people transcribing them could get them wrong easily. Names can be misspelled, dates can be messed up. But the worst thing of it all is the census record went door to door, and if he found that there was nobody home, he would just move on to the next house. And a lot of the times, instead of trying to plan to go backwards to that empty house, he'd ask the neighbors, do you know how old this person was, where they were born, where did they come from? And the neighbors say, oh, sure, I know, and possibly give the wrong information. So if you think you found your ancestor, but there's some information wrong, check it out, because it could still be them. Another reason that you could have problems with the census records is that there is a date listed on top of each page of the census record. And you need to make sure you note that date, just because that specific date was chosen for every census taker for the entire country. And that one date is what they based all of their information on. And being that said, is if your ancestor happened to be born on June 2nd, and the census date that they were planning all the information on was June 1st, they didn't care that that child had turned 2 by the time they got to there. They would mark it down he was 1 year old, because that's how old he was on that particular date. Another problem with the date is that if your ancestor happened to pass away after, like, say, June 1st, when the census was done, the census taker would come out and say, who was all alive on June 1st? You would say, well, my husband was, but he's now passed away. He'll probably still be marked as being alive. So you need to verify your census record information. They're a great find, and there are times all the information on there is correct, but you just need to kind of check it out to make sure. Census records can be found in libraries, historical societies, and you can even get them through the National Archives. So they're out there besides websites. There are several really good websites for doing census research. Of course, you've probably heard of Ancestry.com, that's one. FamilySearch.org is another one, and websites similar to those. But there is one little known census website that people don't seem to know about that I have used often, especially because it's free, doesn't cost you anything, and it's called Census Online. It's www.census, then there's a slash, not a slash, but a line, and then online.com. It has census records for the United States, and access to them. It sometimes will send you to other websites to get to the census records, but you can still get to them. But the really nice thing about that website is it has census records for other countries as well that you can search for. So if you know what country they came from, that particular website may be quite helpful to you. There are different types of death records. Shannon? You want to pass those around? I've got several different types of death records here that you might be able to find that I thought maybe you'd like to take a look at. Some of the other records that you can find other than a death certificate are obituaries, wills, cemeteries, churches, funeral homes, and you can even search a Social Security death index that they have. These records typically have the following information, such as name, residence, where they were born, when they died, where they died, marital information, occupation, and sometimes even information on their parents. If you want to obtain some of these copies, you can try Family Search, Ancestry, and websites like that. You can also go to the county courthouses from where they were at the time and check to see if they have any of the records. But you want to check to make sure what the dates were when the courthouses held the records versus when the state departments of health had the records. Such as for Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Department of Health has the records in their possession from January 1st of 1906 on forward. The records behind that are all in the county courthouses. So that's where you could go to search for those. There are different kinds of marriage records that are available for you to be able to search. They have marriage register books that contain, it's like in conjunction with the other documents such as the marriage license, application, and certificates. There's not a lot of information on those, but there may be some. If you can't find the other stuff, this might help you. Marriage applications shows that a couple's intent to marry, and in most states it required back then as well as now a waiting period that they had to after they filled it out and submitted it. There are certificates of consent for if one of the couple or both were underage, their parents had to fill out this form saying they give consent for them to marry, which will give a little bit more information on them and their parents. And they're usually signed by witnesses, and sometimes the witnesses are also family members. Marriage licenses in Pennsylvania started being issued in 1885, and they were issued by the county clerk. This did not guarantee that they were married. If you happen to find one that was filled out but maybe not signed, they may have applied and got so far as get a marriage license, but for some reason they didn't go through with the marriage. So you want to make sure when you see these that they've been signed by an official that actually married them. Because once he performed the ceremony, he would sign them and then turn them into the county clerk. After they were turned into the county clerk, they were sometimes issued a marriage certificate. Some of the information that can be found on marriage records are the names of the parents, witnesses, addresses, birthdays, the person who performed the ceremony, where it was performed, and the date that it was performed. When looking at marriage records, don't forget to check the newspapers. A lot of times there were announcements of marriages in the newspapers. And sometimes the marriage announcements in the newspapers were quite detailed down to describing the dress and the people who all attended and stuff. So you could find a lot of information from those. And also the churches, that when they were performed inside the churches kept records of the marriages as well. Now, cemetery records are another important documents and information that you'll be looking for. You may want to start visiting a cemetery that you think your ancestors are in, but I advise you to wait. Because there's nothing like going to a cemetery and searching the whole thing over, spending all day and not finding a single ancestor there, and going home quite disheartened. So before you do that and get frustrated, I suggest you research and confirm where you know they're going to be buried first. By researching such as cemetery records, you can sometimes not only find the name of the cemetery where it's located, but you might even be able to find the location within the cemetery where the headstone is at, which will make it a lot easier to find them. A lot of places like the Historical Society like us have cemetery records. We have an index here. You can search the index, and we have the books here. You can watch it around. That hold them, that will give you maps of the cemetery, directions to the cemetery, and a lot of times where the headstone is actually located while they're there. You may want to also contact cemeteries that are nearby where your ancestors lived if you can't find cemetery indexes, and ask them if they do know if so-and-so is buried here. They should have records to be able to help you, and maybe even give you more information on your family from them. When you get to the cemetery, there's a few things you really need to do besides look at the information inscribed on the headstones. You want to make sure you get good photographs taken, as well as write down anything you can actually read on the headstone. But sometimes, especially with the older ones, they're very hard to read. So you want to take a close-up picture of that inscription area, because sometimes when you go home, some of the programs that are out there can enhance that headstone enough that you can actually read what it says. Word Perfect is one that I like to play with to start off with, because changing the color of the picture and the contrast, how light or dark you make the picture, can actually bring out that information. And then the other one you need to take a photograph is you need to step back and take a picture of the headstone from farther away so you get the entire headstone. And you also want to make note what kind of stone was the headstone was made out of, because the design and shape of the headstone, what it was made out of, can help date the headstone, as well as some of the designs that were engraved on the headstone. We'll give you an approximate set of year or years in which that headstone was made. If you can't figure out what the date of death was, that'll at least give you a head start. You can take that information and start looking for the death information on your ancestor by using that. So also, some of the designs on the headstones have meanings to them. If it has an hourglass on it, for example, it means the passage of time. So if it has a design, look in and see what the meaning is. It may have some connection to your family, which may help you with your research. Also, some of the designs were put onto the headstones for a specific reason, such as an organization. If your family member was attached to a organization such as the Freemasons, there are stone designs that were put on the headstones if they were a member of that organization. And that could lead you to finding more information about your ancestor as well. The last thing you need to do about the headstone is not just look at the front of it where you see your family's information, but you really need to take a good look all around on all sides of your headstone, because you never know what you're going to find. Sometimes there are inscriptions of other family members on the other sides of it. I have an ancestor actually that has her information on one side, on the same side as her husband's, facing on his stone next to her. But when you look around at the back side of it, you find her father's information. His name, his birth date, his day he died, and a little bit about him. Excuse me. Also, you want to make note, also, because they sometimes had not just the husband on the headstone, but they'll have his wife or even his children listed on the headstone. And another thing about all these other inscriptions being on there, just don't assume that your other ancestors, like the wife, is buried in the same cemetery along with him. I have another ancestor, she's buried in Illinois. And her husband moved back to Pennsylvania after she died and is buried here. But on his headstone has her death information, her birth date, her death date, and her name, but it has no information on where she's buried. But through all my research, I discovered she's actually buried out in Illinois. They do it to honor their loved ones. So the best way to find out if they're actually in the cemetery or not is to contact the cemetery and see if they have any records of them being buried there.
I use cemetery.com and I forget graves.com.
Find a grave?
Find a grave.
Yes.
And there's a lot of information on.
Yes.
And I'm finding that a lot of the cemeteries have listings online
Yes.
of their residents.
The Allegheny Cemetery in Pittsburgh has a website that, if I remember right, that's the right one. You can actually search online to see if you have an ancestor buried there. So you can search the websites for those as well, yes. But I also suggest making phone calls just because they don't always list everything online. They may have a list of other family members that you may not realize are there or wouldn't even know to look for, that may be buried there. Sometimes they will say, okay, this person didn't die actually here in Pennsylvania. They died in Illinois, but they were brought back here and then buried. And so this is when she was really died. This is when she was buried here, and some of the dates may be a little different. So it's always worth contacting the cemeteries and see if you can find more information.
And one of the other things that I found, like one of my ancestors, two of them were buried in one grave.
Yes, yes, that happens too. Okay. There are a lot of websites out there, as you know, that may help with doing your family tree. The key is when you're looking at websites is to know what kind of websites you're looking for and whether or not you want to do a paid subscription or just try to stick with free websites to use. And there are plenty of both to choose from, and a lot of good ones are out there. Ancestry, which is the biggest and most popular one out there for subscription use, and FamilySearch.org is a very popular, very large one for free website searching for genealogy. Both are very good to use, and I do suggest you check them both out. There are several things you need to know about researching them, though, is don't rush into signing up for a subscription right away, even though you may want to. Take your time first. A lot of these websites have a lot of trial periods, and some of them even have free guest memberships, and I suggest you use those first. Secondly, visit nearby places such as courthouses, historical societies, and libraries and stuff to see what kind of information they can find. You may not need these paid subscription sites if you can find enough information for free by visiting places and searching the free online other websites. Historical societies are filled with history, family history of all kinds. If you take a look around, check out the library and stuff here, you'll see that it's right. There might be a lot of information here for you. Courthouses typically have information on marriage, birth, and death records, but they also hold divorces, wills, land records, and naturalization papers. Libraries hold lots of information and books and stuff that you can research. But when you go to a library, always stop and ask the librarian for help. Tell her what you're doing. They may actually be able to point out some books or records that they actually have on hand that you may not be able to find easily on your own. And they may also be able to point you, say, oh yeah, by the way, did you know the Historical Society for Grove City is just across the street? Go check them out. And they may help you with that. Cemeteries, as I said, may have records that you can search. Now, if you decide to go ahead and use some of the subscription websites, check out and see if they have free trials and the free guest memberships first. And still don't rush into subscribing right away. I would give the free guest registration option first, see what the website's like, how it works, what they have to offer you. And try it out for a while. Get comfortable with it, get confident in using it, and then you can plan create a research plan for your free subscription. You really don't want to waste time and money on trying to do research on a free trial and not know what you're doing or exactly what you want to do and where to go find them. So plan first. Then go ahead, do your free trial, but I caution you, keep an eye on your calendar very closely, because the free trials really it's 14 days, but that 14 days can seem to go really fast, and that 14 days is for Ancestry. And when you go to cancel, if you decide to cancel, not follow through and go get a subscription, cancel 1 day before the deadline of the trial, just to play it safe so that there is no mistake or misunderstanding on just when you canceled, and you're not going to be stuck trying to talk to them saying, look, I canceled it, and they said, you didn't cancel it soon enough on that day. Now there's some questions to ask yourself before you get into the subscription websites to make sure that that particular website is the one you want to use. You check out all the price options, how much it's going to cost you and how long will it give you for that price. Can you create your own family tree on the website and give you hints to help you search better? Is it accessible on mobile devices? Are there any privacy options for when you create a tree? Can you keep it to yourself, or do you have to share it with other people? And do they have message boards? Message boards are always a good thing to check out and to work with. And do they offer any DNA services that can be used for the researching their website? If Ancestry is one of the biggest ones that I've mentioned and most popular, and I suggest you take a look at it. It does have message boards. It has a card catalog that you can search, which is very useful. I like that. It has millions of databases of all kinds. It even has a DNA service, so you can use that, and that's been a big hit lately. You also have the opportunity to fill out and do a free guest registration with Ancestry, and I suggest you do that. There's no time limit on how long you can spend using it. It has access to over 1,000 databases that you can search for free and get information from. To find the registration for the free guest registration, well, you go to www.ancestry.com and you scroll clear to the bottom of the page. And you don't have to have a subscription. You just go to the clear to the bottom of the page, click on this word sitemap. It'll take you to their sitemap, and in the second column, third category down, I believe, is titled Your Account. Click on Register. That will take you to the form that you need to fill out for the free guest registration. They do not require any credit cards or information that way. You just fill that out, and you can start researching all those free databases, create your own family tree, visit the message boards, and do a lot of things. And it won't cost you anything.
Is there a time limit on that?
No. There is no time limit on how long you can be a guest. I have been a guest on there since, about 20 years. No. So, I mean, yeah, it's very good. And it gives you a chance to really investigate the website and learn how it works. So if you do decide to subscribe, you know exactly what you're doing and where you're going to go and how you're going to find stuff, which will save you money in the long run because you're not wasting a lot of time trying to figure it out.
So why would you subscribe if you could be a guest for 20 years?
Well, the reason is you only can get on just over 1,000 databases to use. When you subscribe, you got millions. And I don't know how many millions. It's like way out there now. But I have noticed, at least they used to, that when you get on as a free guest and you create a search for an ancestor, they have a drop-down list of all the databases and things for that particular ancestor you can check out. Sometimes if you hover your cursor over that particular database, they'll give you a summary of what that record is, even with a guest membership. And sometimes that summary will be all that you need. If you want to view the actual document and get more information, then you'll have to subscribe. And that's part of the reason why they hope to hook you with a free guest registration. But it is useful still. And then they have a 14-day free trial that you can do. You always do the guest membership first, then you do your 14-day free trial so you can get a better handle of what records that you can get with a subscription. Then if you decide to subscribe, they have a variety of different levels of subscription size. I think it's like from 6 months up to a year. Or I don't know if some people commented on having doing a month by month, which I don't know about. But check it out. You don't know. But I think it would be helpful. FamilySearch.org, you've probably heard of. I know I've mentioned it. It's a free site. It's similar to the way Ancestry works. They have a lot of free databases, and searches is similar to it, but there's a little differences here and there. They may not have as many databases as Ancestry does because they're quite big, but there's still a lot there. What I found with Family Search is I kind of consider it my back door to Ancestry, because if I get on Ancestry and I cannot find let's say a death certificate, and I've searched and searched and I know it's on there, but I just can't get to it for some reason, I'll go to Family Search, find it on Family Search. They'll give me a link. Do you want to view this document? So I say yes. They take me back to Ancestry, to the document I was looking for in the first place. So, and I've noticed the Ancestry has been doing something similar with Family Search. If they don't have it, they'll send you to Family Search by pushing a little button. So, they're starting to work together, and I still think it's funny. I can use it as a backdoor for Ancestry, though. So even if you're on Ancestry, keep Family Search in sight because they may be able to help you find what you need. Okay. Right now, I don't know how many of you know that you can access documents through the National Archives. And the National Archives is considered our nation's record keeper. They keep documents and records from the federal government during its normal course of business. And some of them they make available to us. They have some free ones that you can order to have copied and sent to you. But the problem is they require you to fill out certain forms for each different type of request. And you have to already know some information to add to them so they can find the right record for you. Some of the documents that you can get from them are ship's passenger arrival records, individual census pages, Eastern Cherokee applications, federal land entry forms, federal military military pension files from the Revolutionary War through the Civil War, bounty land warrant applications, and even military service records. I have, my grandfather was in World War II. I have his records on there being mailed to me now as we speak. So I'll be getting those soon. And I have Civil War records for my one ancestor. And these records are well worth getting from the National Archives, even though you have to pay a fee for them, just because of the immense amount of information you may get. For my Civil War ancestor, I can now trace him through the entire Civil War and know where he was fighting, and what happened to him. We had been always told a family story. As I said about family stories, I always doubted it, that he had he had gotten shot and injured and left on the battlefield for 6 days. And I couldn't see that actually happening. When I got his service record from the National Archives, they documented that actually did happen. And they also sent me information about his hospital stay once after they found him, the hospital name they sent him to, and the hospital records of what the damage was done to him by the mini ball that struck him, and what they did to help fix him and send him on his way to the next battle. I mean, it gave a lot of detail. We could trace him on a map through Gettysburg on where he was injured and how he walked through Gettysburg, through some research and the documents they sent us. So they are definitely worthwhile. Now there are some underutilized websites out there that you may know or may not be aware of. Google search is one of them. It's an excellent place to start a basic research if you know the information you're looking for. Just by typing into the bar, you can access information and lots of websites that may lead you to more. When I type in James Luther Griffin, I get photographs of him. And I know they're him because I have some of the same photographs at home. But they have photographs. They can give his Find a Grave website and some of his military information. But there is also a lot of stuff out there that has absolutely nothing to do with him at all. It's just a matter of how much time you want to take and look through the stuff. And you may find some wonderful surprises while you're at it. Google Books. On the google.com, they have tabs across the top, and one of them is the word books. If you go there and you type in a name of a book or say Grove City, PA history, they will give you a bunch of books that are related to Grove City history. And a lot of them you can read from cover to cover on the computer. And there is a way you can search that particular book for your ancestor by putting his name in, or whatever other information you want. They will put it in and they'll bring up those pages that he is on, and you can read the pages. You can even, there are ways, I don't want to go into it tonight, but there are ways of taking a photograph or a copy of what they list and the pages of these books so you can print it off. So it's definitely worth looking into. There's a lot of information on there, and there is a lot of information on Grove City on there. And some of the books that they list on there you cannot read from cover to cover, but they do list them anyway. The reason is they give you places to go to find those books, whether it is so you can go buy it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or they give you libraries where you can find them, And they also give you the bibliography of the books, so that if you want to use an interlibrary loan, you can take that information to a library and do it that way. So it's well worth the effort to search those for stuff. Another one is for newspapers. There's a couple of those. I have two here for tonight. One is Google News Archives. It's one of the extensions of Google News. It gives you access to newspapers that have been scanned in for the archives. They has links to other newspaper archives on the internet that it will send you to. Some are free and some are a fee attached to them. Some of these newspapers can date back to the 1700s. And there's a timeline view you can use on this website to help you find the records, the newspapers you're looking for. Chronicling America is another free website that is done by the United States Congress that you can view newspaper pages with. They have over 10 million newspaper pages that you can view right now. The content on them varies depending on state by state, and there are always adding more newspaper pages. These newspapers are available between the years of 1836 and 1922. After December 31st, 1922, you're not going to find any newspapers on this website. And it's all because of copyright issues. They're all under copyright after that.
What was that called again? Chronicle.
Pardon me?
What was that called again? The last one.
I can't pronounce. Chronicling, CHRONICLING, America. If you go to the Library of Congress and you type in newspapers, that should bring you up to that website so you can use it. Or you put in Google search bar Library of Congress /newspapers, and that should help you find it as well. Now there's another little known website connected to Grove City in Mercer County, and that is the Mercer County Courthouse Recorder's Office website. They have digitized historical indexes for deeds on there that you can search. Now, these indexes range from 1803 to 1919, and the agreements go from 1803 to 1972. These indexes are searchable by name and date. They can be accessed for free. When you get to the land records where you can, land records, there is a free guest button and there is a subscribe button. Click on the guest button. Is my suggestion at first. It's in the upper left-hand corner. The free access only does not give you access to the actual image of the record. It gives you an index with the book number, the page number, and that sort of thing. You can take that information up to the courthouse and say, okay, I want to see this record. And they will show you the record. And you can have it copied off, which is like 25 cents a page. Or, if you want to be a little bit more like me and want to stick around home and are willing to pay, you can stay at home. There are 4 subscription opportunities as well. The first one is a 1-day subscription with, you can view all the images you want during that day for $5. 1 year is unlimited, is $400. The 6-month one is $225, and a 30-day is $40. Now I'm going to tell you the reason the prices are so high, in my opinion, is because that's what the lawyers are wanting. And they're charging that for the lawyers. I figure the 1-day subscription is more for us. But like I said, you could do it for free and just take that information you find on the website up to the courthouse and say, I want this. So it depends on what you want to do. But they are very nice. Is that one? That's one of the one is there, isn't it, for the website? Here's a copy of one of the things I printed off for the website to show you what information you could get. But I've used it, and it's very interesting. Now, normally, you would not think of Facebook for genealogy and doing genealogy, but I'm telling you, Facebook's a place to go, especially if you have a lot of questions. There are pages generated towards just general genealogy research. A lot of them are groups that you can join. There are other pages that are a bit more specific than that. There are several for how to use genealogy with DNA with genealogy research. There are some set up for translating documents from other languages. There are some for specific surnames, and some families even set up family pages that you can visit. Now, these people on these websites are very nice. I've joined several of them, and they're very helpful. If you have any questions or problems, or if you say, look, I've hit this brick wall, I just don't know what else to do, you give the information on that brick wall, and usually somebody in that group will help you and do some research for you. And a lot of times, we will find an answer. It's very rare that nobody finds an answer. Another pages that you need to be aware of that you can find on Facebook are affiliations with organizations. There are different VFW posts around the county. A lot of them are posted on Facebook. They have their own pages. So if you have questions or want to know information, you can go onto Facebook and ask. Somebody will answer you. They have, the reason I know, very good reason I know this is my grandfather that was in the World War II. He was on a minesweeper out in the Pacific Ocean called the U.S. Superior. One day, for the fun of it, I typed in U.S. Superior into Facebook. Sure enough, they have their own page. And on that web page, there was over 100 photographs. And a good many of them included my grandfather. And I wrote to them, and the one guy that operated the page, his father that was on that boat with my grandfather was still alive and loved to tell stories. So I was able to be given contact with him, talk to him on the phone about my grandfather, about the ship, and got a lot more out of that phone call than I ever would have just trying to research for my grandfather. So these Facebook can be very helpful, and I suggest you check it out. It's well worth it. I know it sounds silly, but checking out Facebook for genealogy, but it helps. Now, on the one group that I'm attached to for genealogy on Facebook, I asked a question a while ago, for tonight. I asked everybody, I said, what is your best advice for somebody just starting with their genealogy? And 458 responses is what I got. Yeah, and the top 10 answers, in order of how many suggested the same thing, are interview the oldest person in your family, document, start slow and be methodical, don't believe the family stories for they are often not entirely true, start with yourself, organize patience and determination, I highly value that one, learn the basics of good research practices, keep good records. Don't upload anything onto any website that you don't want to share but you want to keep for yourself. And be prepared for surprises. Now, my final word of advice to everybody tonight is that I wish to share with you is what my father-in-law always told me every time the subject of genealogy came up in front of him. And he would tell me while shaking his finger in a stern look is be careful, you just might find a horse thief one day. My response to him is, boy, I hope so. Wouldn't that be great? He'd shake his head at me and laugh and then leave it go. Well, to be honest, in every family there's probably a skeleton sitting somewhere in a closet hidden away. And the best thing I can do is to advise you to come up with an idea of what you may want to do if that should ever happen. Now, do you want to put it into your family tree? Do you want to sugarcoat it a little bit and make it a little bit better? Or do you just want to slam the door on that closet and leave it be? For you to decide, there are no wrong answers on what you do when you find that skeleton, because everything you decide to do is correct. And don't worry about it, whatever you decide. And it all may just come down to the decision of what kind of skeleton you find and how old it is. Will depend on what you exactly want to do with it. But like I said, it doesn't matter. It's your choice. Once again, thank you for coming tonight. Does anybody have any questions? No?
You're a wealth of information, Cathy. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, thanks.
Maybe you should put a plug for when you're available here.
Pardon me?
Maybe you should put a plug in for when you're available here.
Oh, yes, you're right. I'm here. Jane Clear and I are here to help with genealogy every second and fourth Tuesday of the month while we're open. We do take requests and stuff when we're closed. If you email us or we don't get messages on the phone much during the winter when we're not here, but you can always give it a try. Give us a call here when we're open. Stop in and visit. On the papers you should have my address, my email address, the Historical Society phone number and address, the hours we're open, and when Jane and I are here even. So if you go home and you decide you have any questions about genealogy or how to research, just let me know. I will answer whatever I can. If I can't, I'll ask Jane or find somebody who can help you.
And we do have Ancestry.com, a subscription here, that as members or anybody who would want to come in, the hours were open. You can come in and use that.
Definitely.
So
If you
that's one benefit of your, of
Yeah.
having the service.
If you're not sure about Ancestry or you're running into trouble using it, just get a hold of Jane and I and we'll help you. We'll do what we can. We have all kinds of information here at the Historical Society that you probably want to take a look at some point. We have our cemetery indexes and books. We have a full library of all kinds of histories and things. We have a bookshelf out here in the other room of family histories that other people have already done and that are placed on the shelves that you're more than welcome to look through. There's binders and file folders and everything, so there's a lot here. And it's not just down here in those two rooms. The upstairs rooms are full of information and items and stuff that might actually be related to your family. We have a veterans room with tons of military photographs and information up there that you can look at. This is just a really wonderful place to go looking around and
Cathy,
checking out.
didn't you write up a book of how to
Oh,
genealogy? Is that,
Yes, I
do we
did.
have that here?
We
I
have
don't.
the children's
Well, that's one for the children. I don't know where the other one is.
I don't know, we must be full of that.
I do have. I have written several books on genealogy. We have two here. We have one family tree book for children to fill out and games to play with their family members. But there is one called My Family Tree Research that I've written. We usually have it in here.
Plus we have copies of the family tree that they could just buy.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And inside that book, the book that's not on the shelf right now, but on that book, in that book we have copies of the family group sheets. And we have copies of all kinds of different forms and checklists and information on how to research some of the documents. It talks about some of the stuff I mentioned tonight about the census records in them. I mean, it's a really nice workbook to fill out and to use while you're researching. I like it to use it because when I go away somewhere, I don't have to take a bunch of files with me. All I have to do is take the book. And I don't lose pages or anything out of it or leave something behind. Yeah, this is it here. I like my family group sheets actually. Some of the ones I find I can't really fit all the information I want to on them, so I made my own. Here, you want to show that around? And what I was talking about was being able to put more information onto a family group sheet. I made this one so I could add all that onto there, including census records and things. But those are nice. I have a whole series of genealogy books available. I have written them on Ancestry and how to use Ancestry even. But to start off with, this one here is a really good one to start with.
This one.
Yes, that's the one I would advise for somebody just starting out. Yeah, it has a lot of different stuff. Now, the rest of the books in this series are pretty much broken down to one book just on family group sheets, another one on census records, sort of thing, so that when you fill up that book and you want some family group sheets, you don't really need the rest of the book. You just need that one. You can go get the book on just family group sheets.
How much are these books, Cathy? I have a question.
Shannon, I'm not sure how much.
Underneath the Kleenex box.
And are those charts we had, were those yours too, Jane?
Pardon?
The charts we had that they could work with.
Yeah, I don't know if they're still here. I was looking the other day on their. I don't know. Do you know if
Well,
they still have
Jane
them?
usually takes them to Marshall's and get them copies. So I'll
Oh.
check with her and we'll get some.
Okay, and there's what, 15 generations on those?
I think.
We do normally carry ancestor charts that carry back 15 generations. We usually have those here. I don't know why they're not out, but
I think they're sold.
okay. we could probably, if you're interested in some of those, I'm sure we could probably get some more in for you. But I don't know.
Simple category on
I'm looking for it.
Here,
Cause I see the, My Family Tree for the child.
$20
$20 for the,
for the adult, yeah. It's right above the child one.
Hey.
I know, sorry.
Working too hard.
Yeah. This is my daughter Shannon. She's quite helpful to me. She helps me all the time. There are bookmarkers as well at the desk by the door or beside the computer. The bookmarkers, or there's a book festival in Mercer. It's going to be the one park in Mercer. I forget which the name of it is. But it is nothing but local authors come in and set up tables. You can come and search the books to see if there's something you'd be interested in. There are all kinds of genres there. I mean, you name it, it's probably going to be there. Yeah. So if you'd be interested in going to the book fair, you just might find me there even.
There should be a caveat. If you start it, it's very addictive, and it's like going down a rabbit hole. Because once you find somebody, then you go after that person and then all the people that person's connected to. So, if you have any other interests whatsoever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I started this, I never thought much that I'd be researching military history much at all. Turns out, I do a lot of military research, not just for everybody else, but for myself as well. I had a gentleman a couple years ago come in wanting help with his research for his one ancestor who was in World War I. He was in Company M, a National Guard unit out of Grove City. I said, sure. I'd done a lot of research for military records for my own family, just hadn't done World War I before, so I went ahead and did it. Didn't find a whole lot of information, any different or much that was going to be of help to him. So I told him not to worry about it. I'd spend much time as I could trying to help him. My research, I thought, well, I'm finding enough information that we kind of need to put it together, stick in a filing cabinet for here. Well, more research came. Well, it's going to need to be a little booklet. There's too much. And then eventually just turned into a book. But by the time the book was done, he received his copy of it. He just sent me a letter saying that he's read the entire book. He's thrilled to death with it, that he has got a map for France, and he's heading to France soon to follow the footsteps of Grove City's National Guard. And he is just so tickled with it. The book, this is the book here. I have all kinds of documents in here, as well as history, and a lot of photographs relating to Company M of all kinds. Yeah, and some documents here. But it's well worth the read. We have it in the library here. You can come and look at it, or you can buy it here for sale. But it's really interesting, needless to say.
What happened to the little file it was supposed to be?
Yeah, that's it there.
I could use
So-
it as a mentioning object.
Beware when you're starting out your genealogy. You don't know where it's going to lead you. And I know when I was in school, I did not like history. I did not like English. Never dreamed in a million years I'd have anything to do with either one of them. And I even told a teacher once, I'm never going to use history again. Why should I worry about this? Yeah, look at me now.
If anybody has any more questions for Cathy, she'll be here. Any personal, research questions, I'm sure she'll be happy to help with that. And in the meantime, feel free to enjoy the punch and cookies over on the table. And any of you who are visiting and haven't been in since we just dedicated our new mail wagon room and coal mining display downstairs, be sure to take a few minutes to stop down there and see our new displays, before you leave. Thank you.
Thank you. One more thing. This one form here is one of the forms you need to fill out for the National Archives if you're looking for military records. I created this recently when searching for my grandfather's information for his to fill out, so you can fill this out. But that's what this information is for, just so that this could be filled out. If you want interested in the National Archive records, you might want to take a look at those. I do have some copy of those at home. If anybody's interested, I could bring some in and leave them here if you want to pick them up. They're free to print off the website. They're easy to use. And if there's, I'll just leave the documents up here if you guys want to kind of page through them, look at it a little closer, go right ahead. This one here I didn't pass around because I wasn't going to mention it in my thing, but this is a family tree relationship chart. This here will help you tell the different, like first cousin, second cousin removed, and that sort of thing. You can access this sort of thing off the internet to find them, and this here side explains it a little bit better. But I find this very handy as well. There's a lot to this. When I got started, I knew nothing. Yeah. See, even today, there's a lot that I don't know. And then I constantly buy magazines, family tree magazines, and different internet genealogy magazines, all geared towards researching genealogy. They give you examples. They do reviews of websites and how to work them, and they do a lot of things that way. So their county market carries them from time to time. So if you're interested in picking up a magazine, you can pick one up and take a look at it. I always put down a magazine aisle every month. If I see one of something that I don't know or I want to learn more about or something that's interesting, I'll pick it up. So my husband, regretfully, I have a big box of magazines dating way back. And every so often I go, wait a minute, okay, or somebody has a certain question, I'm like, wait a minute, I've got an article on that. And I'll dig it out and look at the article, see if it's any help to them. Yeah, I know. The kids can remember all that. Just a long time of using all these websites and doing all this, and like I said, I don't remember everything. I'm sure there's a lot more out there that I would love to be able to tell you if I could just remember it all.
If you have somebody in your family tree and you know their name, but you can't find anything about them, what would you suggest?
Okay, you know their name. They know, like any children or a wife or.
Yes, I have that information, but I can't find anything on it.
You don't have any birth dates on him at all? I would head to the census records. Look for the wife or the children in the census records about the time that you'd think he would still be alive. And that census record should give you the information you need on him so you can gather more information. It should give you at least an approximate year he was born and about where he was born and where his parents may even have been born. So some of this censuses will give you all of that. Forget which year it is. It's been written down in my book, I'm sure. There's a certain year of census that asks what year they immigrated from if they immigrated. And so if there's an immigrant that come over, you'll at least have that year to depend upon. So if you search the census records, make note of what questions they ask, and it may lead you into finding more information. Some of the census records will tell you if they've been naturalized or not. And there's a lot that goes into naturalization, which I won't go into tonight, but there's a lot of things that they had to do to become naturalized and a lot of processes. And the process could take them over across several states if they happen to move during that time. So the census record may tell you if they had been. And if they had been, then that's one more record you can look for.
I'm not really looking for a whole lot of information, I'm just trying to find out who he is.
Well, the census records would be the best place to start. If you happen to know where his children or his wife were buried, I would start checking that particular cemetery.
He's not with her.
Are you sure?
Well, not that anything I can find, just put it that way.
Have you talked to the cemetery?
No.
I would talk to the cemetery. He might be. If not, then it's going to be a little bit harder to find, but it is possible. There used to be a website called Internment. That was also another good one that not too many people knew about. That might actually help if it's still active and being used.
I know there's a website, I think the Latter-day Saints.
That's
Their
Family
website.
Search.
Is that Family Search?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one if you haven't tried it. I'd give it a try.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Yeah?
Well, my grandpa came from Italy, and I have his records when he came on the boat over, but I can't go from before the boat. He got on the boat.
Okay. The thing you need to do is to do a little bit of research on your history of immigration for that particular country, because some countries had very popular deportation or sites, ports that they left from that were very popular.
Right.
Depending on what, like for in Germany, depending on where you lived in Germany, depended on where you would go to find a port to leave. If you were up north of the Rhine River, near, close enough to it, a lot of Germans went to the Rhine River, boated it down the Rhine River to a port, I forget the name of the port, that they would get on the boat and then come over. In Ireland, there was quite a few different ports that were used to leave Ireland to come to America. But the one in Cork, Ireland, was the biggest and the busiest one for the Irish to come over here.
But then where do you go from?
Well, then you go to that particular town or where that port
town.
was, and you can try and search for records through that particular port. Sometimes you can access those online, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy because I've never done that particular country, but sometimes they'll have it. Have you tried?
In other words, like I have an idea where he was born.
Okay, now the idea of where he was born would be good to search the history for where he's born in connection with emigration, because there may be some history somewhere saying most of the people that lived here used this particular port, or they traveled this way to get to a port to go. I mean, there are ways that way. There are websites for shipping companies that were emigration ships that were used from way back when. And some of those particular websites will have a way of searching some of the records on whether your ancestor was on one of those boats, or if the ship's name is connected to that company, you can learn a little bit more about that ship. One of my ancestors came over from England. We found, researching the history of emigration for England and about the area we thought he lived in, we discovered exactly where he left England, went to Cork, Ireland, and then the boat left from there to come to America. I discovered why they did that. I was able to find out how much it cost him to come over, and I have some rough pictures of what it was like for the boat to come in and leave from there during that time period. I mean, I found a lot of information that I wrote up a really nice paper with pictures and documents from England as well as over here in connection with his emigration. But it takes some researching history sometimes to find some of
Does
it.
other countries have censuses over there?
Yes.
Back in the 1800s? Or?
1881 in Wales, I have a census record for a family the year before they emigrated over here. They're the ones that told me the family story about all the children and their ages and all that. But other countries do have census records. And that one website I told you, that census online one, if you go there, they will list what other countries they have available census records for. Then maybe they'll have something for you. Then you can go start searching the census records over there. But it's worth looking into. You might find them. If you have an idea about where they lived there in that country, it will give you a better idea of where to start searching for them. Yes, Lillian.
In Italy and Ireland, both the church has good records.
Yeah.
If you know which parish in Ireland.
Definitely. She's right. Check parish records in the town or where you think they're located.
And if the name was changed at
Yes.
some point.
Well, see, that's what I don't know.
Yeah.
I know he come over with the name I have now, but I don't know what the name was before.
Well, it may not have changed at all.
Yeah, I
have
don't
you
think
searched?
it was.
Do you know where they came into America at?
Yeah, Ellis Island.
Was it Ellis Island or Castle Garden?
It was Ellis
It was
Island.
definitely Ellis Island. You
Yeah.
checked the website?
No.
Yeah, that
Okay.
website is really good.
Check the website. You can search for your ancestor and they might give you a little bit more information on your ancestor. A lot of times when you research the immigration, the ship's records and stuff, they will tell you what port they came from. Now the port they came from doesn't necessarily mean they lived there or lived near
Yeah.
there. They may very well have traveled to get there. But at least it will give you a port to check out the history of over in that other country for maybe more records.
One of the things I found, these other countries also have genealogy sites that you can visit.
Oh yes, they do. Ireland, we researched Ireland a lot because that's where my husband's family's from. But Ireland had, if you type in, they were from a little town called Larganclabby. And you type in Larganclabby genealogy, or that particular county, which I can't say the name of, so we'll say Tyrone. If you type in Tyrone County, Ireland, genealogy into Google, they will give you a lot of websites for that country, for that genealogy research, which will help you. Now, keep in mind, Ancestry, gotta love them. They have other internet sites, not just what we use. They have them from other countries as well. It's usually, what's the abbreviation? Oh, okay, we'll use UK. Ancestry.com/UK, I think is what it is. That will take you to an Ancestry website that's pretty much dominantly research documents and stuff for that particular country. Though it will do America, but they focus mainly on that particular country. So you might be able to get a free trial or a guest registration for that particular website to search it. If you put in your ancestor's name and whatever information you know about him, like a couple of facts into Google search bar, you may come up with some more information on him and where he's from. At the very least, you should be able to find other trees and things. Check out other, get on websites, check out other family trees that have your relatives in them, and go through and see what kind of documents they've collected. Maybe somebody there will have
How do
something.
you find that?
Well, okay. If you use the Ancestry guest registration
Okay.
and search some of the trees. Beware though, when you're looking at somebody else's tree online or even in paper form, be careful because who knows, they may have made some mistakes on their own that they're not aware of. So when you find somebody's tree, always try and verify what they have is correct. If they have any documents for your people in those trees, look at the documents, see if you can view the originals and see what they have to say. But definitely, and collect message boards. Like Ancestry has message boards you should be able to get for free access to. Check the ancestor boards. There may be somebody out there doing the same research as you or knows something more than you. It's always worth getting in touch with other people. Try Facebook. Ask people. And you know what? The thing with some of these Facebook groups I'm attached to, very few of them are from this area. They're from all over everywhere else. I feel almost alone sometimes. But actually, I'm doing some research for one gentleman on Facebook because his grandparents came from Grove City. So I'm going to be starting research for him this week. But so get on and get on Facebook, get to like the one up, there's two of them on. The one is, I think it's just plain genealogy, and the other one is genealogy just ask. And these people, you put in your question saying, look, I'm looking for this gentleman. I don't know how to find this information about him. You give them all the information you have and say, please, can anybody help me? Chances are there's going to be somebody out there somewhere who says, oh, well, okay, I'll give it a try. And the chances are they're going to find something for you. May not be what you're wanting exactly, but they'll find something because they will try. They're very nice, very polite people. I haven't seen or heard any problems with anybody on any of those websites I've been on, and everybody's always very willing to help. Some people, I don't have access to Fold 3, and there has been people on there that do and say, okay folks, I don't have anything to do, I'm bored, I've got Fold 3, you got anything you want to know, I'll find it for you. So I said, one woman, I said, sure, I want to know this. Sure enough, by the next day, I had the document. She sent it back to me.
So what's fold 3?
Pardon me? Fold 3 focuses mainly on military records and documents that you can find through the military. And you have to subscribe to it and pay for it, and I haven't done that. So there's somebody on there that does newspaper.com, and I've asked them. I'm still looking for Camp Leisure. I find Camp Leisure is a National Guard encampment back in 1889 that was held in Grove City. There are some little snippets of newspaper articles here and there about Camp Leisure, about Company M being there, but I can't find a whole lot about it anywhere else but newspapers, and only a few little snippets. And now I know I have an article at home that mentions something about the National Guard and the girls. I found that years ago. I put it away for later, and I can't find it now. It's sitting in with my Company M books and notes and stuff somewhere. I just have to go through them. But I got on there and said, okay, she's offering research on newspapers, so I put that out to her. The next day I have 3 little articles about Camp Leisure that she happened to find, not the one I was looking for, but still a couple that I hadn't had. So it's definitely worth getting on and asking them.
One of the things that I found is if you're putting a name or something in the search engine, you're not finding anything on it, rearrange it.
Yes.
Because a lot of times that rearrangement will bring up something and get you to where you want to go.
Rearrange it, add and take stuff away, or you could put the first name plus the middle name, and that little plus symbol may even help.
Or maybe
Quotation
you have to put the last
marks.
name first.
Yeah, vice versa. And watch the spelling. A lot of times in documents and stuff, spellings have gotten changed, or when things have been transcribed, they transcribe them wrong. Good example, an ancestor on my husband's side, his entire family told me his name was Samuel. They were adamant about it, and I kept going, are you sure? Are you sure? It's Samuel, it's nothing else, I'm positive. I'm like, fine. But all the research I would find, putting in all of his information that I knew, wasn't Samuel. Instead of an S, it was an L. And I'm like, okay, this has to be our guy. And going further back, another generation, using the guy with the letter L, I found the rest of our family, and I knew they were us because I had documents on them. And I'm like, okay, folks, his name wasn't Samuel, it was an L. His military papers come back with the L. I hadn't found him anywhere in any official documents as his name being Samuel. But the family insisted it was Samuel, and I narrowed it down to somebody saw a document with old writing, it looked like an S, so they just assumed it was an S. The rest of the name was spelled identical to Samuel, it was just the first letter that was different. So, I mean, watch your spelling. If you have any doubts, change the spelling around, play with variations. Oh, one more thing about names. I've been at this long enough, I have a lot of things happen. I have an ancestor we spent almost 10 years looking for, and nobody could find him. Everybody in the family swore his name was Will. We have some things that he wrote that says Will on it, but all the official documents couldn't be found. I finally got some letters sent to me from a great aunt who had passed away and wanted me to have them. They were letters from him. He signed all the letters Will. Didn't help. I looked at the envelopes they came in. The envelopes had a stamp on them that he put on himself that said Thomas William. I started searching for Thomas, and there he was, falling in my lap every time I looked. So watch for middle names. If you're having trouble and you know he has a middle name, use his middle name. Forget the first name or reverse him. If he had a middle name, he might have gone with that all the time. Part of Jim, my husband's family, went by their middle names all the way down to his father. They never used their first name for anything. It was always a middle name. And then there's nicknames. We have an uncle. His name is Melvin. Everybody in town knows him as Pat. And that's not a nickname you would put with Melvin. And what it comes down to his child or his brother, when his brother was a baby, could not say Melvin. He just kept saying Pat Pat, and we'll walk up to him and go Pat Pat, and the name stuck. So he is now Pat. So when I'm doing family tree, I always have to stop and recheck whatever I'm doing if he's involved and make sure I have the correct name, because I'll automatically write down Pat if I'm not careful.
My grandma was like that. She always went like